Hey everyone, this is the Mega Construx Urban Assault Copter set. It's based on the EC635 mil-spec Eurocopter from Call of Duty Ghosts. I'm surprised that they still are making large buildable sets like this based on Call of Duty Ghosts. The helicopter itself is the very one that you spend a lot of time being associated with. I want to say in the early mid-early stanzas of the solo campaign, and it even has the exact markings on the side with the AH-80H there. Color scheme is pretty close. They actually use gold, interestingly enough, which is slightly metallic here, has some metallic flake in it, just to get a hue match. It's pretty close in the color, but I think in-game the real thing is not supposed to be quite so metallic like that. From a distance, I think that it looks pretty spot on, but you get up a little bit closer and it maybe has a little bit too much glimmer to it, especially these parts on the canopy that are printed or painted on, which is an even more metallic. You know, it's a brighter color that has more shine to it. The build of this is pretty good. It does have a couple of naughty bits in it though, I have to say. A couple of places where they do things that are not quite right for the parts. So you see that the entire main rotor assembly is angled forward. Well, the way that's assembled onto there, onto a hinge beneath, it's kind of a hyper-extended hinge. It's pushing a little bit beyond its limits. It's not going to fall off. I didn't have any trouble with it, but it just had to be kind of forced on a little bit. Also behind here, you get a little access to an engine compartment. It's supposed to be showing you little bits of a couple of turbines that are buried down in there. That's a nice bit of detail, but this part with the ridged, oh yeah, you can see it moving just a little bit. It actually popped up on its own since I just had this sitting here overnight. But yeah, it's kind of forced in there into a space that it's not wanting to sit into. Not a big deal. That one right there, I mean, worst case scenario, it'll just pop up and flop around just ever so slightly. This seems to be strong enough. So everything seems to work well, but I did want to point out that there are just a couple of things that are a little bit off in the build. Otherwise, everything else went together pretty well. You may think of this by default, by its shape, as a fuel tank, an external fuel tank. It's not. It's supposed to be a gun pod. Check out the Eurocopter SAWS system, standalone weapon system. There's supposed to be a barrel actually sticking out here. They could have added in an extra piece, I think, for that. Would have looked a little bit more accurate, but it's not bad. It's good to have that hole there. It's very close. And then on the other side, they've got the rocket pod. These rockets are actually held in there better, I have to say, than in previous sets that have used this sort of assembly. I've commented before that I've had trouble getting these rockets to actually stay in place, but these are not falling out. They're not all in at the exact same depth, but they're nice and firm, which is all that I can ask for. This has a nice canopy. You can open up that canopy, get inside there, and it has seating for two at the front, single control stick for each person, which is on a ball joint that can be moved around. They give you nice sight lines. You can see through the lower windows there, and the cockpit features some printed pieces for your glass cockpit display. That actually looks pretty nice in there, but a lot of the detail is tough to pick out if you don't get light in there just right. But hey, definitely better to have more than less. Here's a look at it from the other side. So in total, there are 3 special printed pieces for that. The main center passenger or cargo compartment is fairly cramped here inside the doors. You can fit 2 figures in there, but expect to have to spend some time doing some finger gymnastics in there. Get a hand onto each of the handhold rails here and expect to work on it for a little while. They don't really give you good access. There are no other removable panels. You can move the weapon systems out of the way to the front or the back. I guess that helps you right there. But yeah, it's definitely cramped in there, and especially when you consider that a figure is a little bit taller than the amount of space that they give you there. It takes some work. Much nicer is the rear cargo compartment area, which uses a couple of new molds to cover that up in a very realistic way. Those are specialized, I think, just for this set or just for this type of craft. And this opens up. Got the horizontal opening to either side, opens up widely. Very convenient to get a care package out of there. That fits in there, slides right in, has plenty of space, and they give you a bunch of accessories, as they usually do, as extra stuff. Always good to see, bunch of extra stuff in there. So those are nice. And these aren't just regular silver colored parts. As you can see, they have a little bit of little speckling in them to, you know, just change up the look just a little bit. So this works well. Another thing that I think they've done well with new molds is back here on the tail. We've got the fan tail, and I don't like the exposed studs here at the front and the back, but the way this whole thing went together is pretty nice, pretty genuine. You know, they had to use some specialized parts to really get that enclosed. Definitely looks better from this side. The fan itself will spin, not too freely, but does okay. I think they could have used some taller pieces, taller wedge plates for the tips of the vertical stabilizers back here, just for a little more realism, but it's not bad. Overall, like I said, most of the construction went together well, with just a couple of small exceptions. And of course, the main rotor blades spin up well. If you put this together and you find that the main rotor doesn't spin nice and freely and forever like this, just flip the pin that's inside of there. There's a black technical pin inside of there, and Mega pins, some of them have friction on one side and no friction on the other. So experiment with that either way, and just be aware that they will work differently depending upon how you put them in. The figure on the left is an official licensed Captain Merrick from Ghosts, and then the other two figures are just generic. They don't have any official licensed names on them, so you just got a pilot and a random soldier. Nice variety as usual with the colors, including some subtle differences, and the different accessories, the different weapons included. Good stuff. I especially like the dual drum magazine, although that weapon overall looks a little bit small, I guess, relative to the assault rifles, but it works. I think that the longer barrel would have worked out, would have looked a little bit better just in terms of size for an LMG, but it's okay. I'll live with it. And a very interesting thing came out of this set that I totally did not expect. This is like the fourth set that I've gotten, fourth Mega set that I've gotten in a row that had a little baggie included with replacement parts, something to swap out, or an errata, you know, where they would give you a little piece of extra instruction sheet and a bag of parts to swap out. This one actually included a different helmet for the pilot. I looked at the original one that you're supposed to now discard, and it doesn't have the tint on the visor. I have a feeling that they added the tint later just because you don't have good consistency of the thickness of the visor section. Like, it kind of looks wonky here. So they probably added on the tint just to kind of hide that a bit, and I'm fine with that. But the bigger deal is that the original one that they now want you to discard was glued. The new one that they included, the replacement part, is not glued. So it looks super ugly when you take the helmet off, but you can take the helmet off without having to get in there with a knife or lots of force or use some solvent or something. I think just force for the most part is what helps to get those things off. Just allows for greater customizability. Now, I think this looks terrible, yes, but it's better to be able to change things out, swap them out when that is an available option than to not be able to. And the thing is plenty strong. It's not like it's going to fall off. They're both rubbery pieces, so you don't lose anything, you only gain. But more interesting to me than the decision to leave the glue out is the fact that they caught something that small. It seems to me that after all these years, Mega has finally instituted a good working late stage review where they check actual production units rather than just pre-production stuff, but production units, and make sure they actually build the sets and they actually test everything and actually make sure that they work as designed. They have not seemed to do that before, because if they did, they would catch so much more stuff. Now it seems like they're catching that stuff, even down to something this small. That is actually huge. That's probably one of the biggest, most important things to happen to Mega ever. I'm going to have to talk about that a bit more in the future. To be honest, this set to me is not great. I actually feel like the last big helicopter they did was nicer, and part of that is the fault of the subject matter. The color scheme, I think, really throws me off and turns me off from this thing. I didn't particularly like the color scheme of it in-game. I think that it looks worse here with that kind of metallic banana slug color that's used as the accent. I think it would have been much better with just a consistent camo all over, but that's more Call of Duty Ghost's fault than Mega's, but it's just too bad. The figures are very good. Most of the build is good with a couple of weird exceptions in there, but overall the thing just doesn't stand out to me, except for just the great level of detail to which they're going to catch things that may be wrong in the production phase, where things have always gone wrong in the past. Pretty much the only place where things have gone wrong in the past. So that's my look at that set, along with my opinions about it. Thank you for watching. If there's anything you'd like to add, feel free to share a comment down below, and I'm going to get to work on my next video, so I will catch you later.